Welcome. So this is the second part of this lesson, and we're going to be talking about what happens when we add 2 pi. So adding 2 pi to an angle results in a return to the same point on the unit circle. So based on that, we can kind of say these two things. We can say that sine of 2 pi plus theta is simply equal to sine of theta, and cos of 2 pi plus theta is equal to cos of theta. So in other words, adding 2 pi does nothing. It just takes you back to where you started from. And as we go on, we'll also talk about these two dot points here, but let's just first dive into an example here. So here we have cos of 4 pi. So what we're going to try to do is to write it like this, and we can do that. That would be cos of 2 pi plus 2 pi. And once I've got it into this form, what I can say based on this is it's just going to be cos of 2 pi. And we know that cos of 2 pi is simply equal to 1. Let's now really think about what we're doing here, and I might just zoom into this unit circle here. If I go around once, that's 2 pi. If I go around another time, that's now 4 pi. And as you can see, I've arrived back at where I started. And we know the position here is 1, 0. And if we're looking at cos, we're looking at our x value. So therefore, it's just going to be 1. And that's how we think about it. Let's do it again. So if I had cos of 5 pi, what I would do is say, well, this is the same as cos of 4 pi plus pi. Now, this works for any multiple of 2. So as long as it's an even number, it's going to work here. So that means I can rewrite this as cos of pi. And I know cos of pi is going to be equal to -1. Let's now look at our unit circle and really think about how 5 pi really works here. So I know if I go around once, it's 2 pi. If I go around again, it's obviously going to be 4 pi. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to plus another pi to it, because at the moment I've gone around 4 pi. And if I want to get to 5 pi, I'm going to have to plus another pi onto it. So that means pi would be here. And I know that this point right here is -1, 0. Because I'm looking at my cos, that means it's my x value, and that's how it's -1. So instead of doing all these loops around, instead what I could have just done is say I'm starting here and I'm going there. Or in other words, it's just cos of pi. So that's kind of just a quick way of thinking about it. All right, let's go through our next one here. So it's sine of 5 pi on 2. So again, I'm going to break it up so I have a multiple of 2 plus something. So it's going to be sine of, I could write this as 4 pi on 2 plus pi on 2, because that's equal to 5 pi on 2. I know that 4 pi on 2 is simply 2 pi. Then I'm going to plus pi on 2 onto it, like that. So that means what I'm left with is just sine of pi on 2, because this right here is just saying go back to where you started. If we were to really think about what we did here, we have done a loop and then come up pi on 2. But instead of thinking about that loop, we can just say, hey, just go up pi on 2. We know that that's going to bring us to this point right here, which is 0, 1. Sine tells us that we're looking for the y value, so my answer is going to be 1. Okay, let's go into our next one. Okay, so for these ones, what we're going to do is, this is how normally, there's another way to do it, these type of questions that we'll learn later on, but for now, we just have to use what we know. If you were to do this, if you were to go, let's go 6 pi on 2 plus pi on 2, I feel that lots of people will do that, and that would give us this, 3 pi plus pi on 2. Now, we can't say this is equal to sine pi on 2 because 3 pi is not a multiple of 2. So that means this does not work. What we have to do instead is say, all right, if I make this 4 pi on 2 and then plus onto that pi on 2, sorry, if I plus onto that 3 pi on 2, well, that brings me to 7 pi on 2. And that is the same as 2 pi plus 3 pi on 2. Which is going to be equal to sine of 3 pi on 2. And now I can come over here and just say, well, it's just literally that, which is taking me here, which is going to be 0, -1. So my answer is going to be -1. We can also think about this when we're doing negative numbers. So this would be cos of negative 6 pi minus pi, which would be the same as simply cos of negative pi, which would mean I'm just going back that way. So I'm going back negative pi, and that would take me to this position right here, which we know is going to be negative 1. And then same to here, what we would do here is we would say that this is the same as, what can I break this up into? I'm going to have to break it up into sine of negative 16 pi on 2 minus 3 pi on 2, because that will give me sine of negative 8 pi negative 3 pi on 2. This is an even number, so that means I can rewrite it as this. And I know that is going to mean I start here, I go all the way to here, which is going to take me here, which is 0, 1, which means my answer is going to be 1. Perfect. So hopefully all that made sense, and you really just kind of get an intuitive understanding of what it means when we're plussing 2 pi to things. Okay. Let's now just go through some of these examples here. And these are kind of just take-home messages here. If I have sine of this right here, what that means, if I was just to draw a rough unit circle here, if it's sine of 6 pi, it means I'm either going to be, I know where I'm going to be, but let's just for a moment say it's going to mean I'm either here or here, right? And sine is my y value, so I immediately know that's going to be 0. So too over here, if I'm given cos of anything over 2, I know if it's over 2, and it's 9 pi on 2, I know that it's going to take me either here or here, and I know that cos is only true when I'm on the x axis, so that means this is going to be 0 as well. Then I could come over here and say, well, this is just 36 pi, and because it's even, I know it's simply going to be, I know it's just going to be 1, because you're going to have to draw this. I'm going around 2 pi, 4 pi, 6 pi, 8 pi, 10 pi. All my even numbers are at the 1 point right there. And that means if I've got an odd number here, it's going to be negative 1. And then lastly, I'll just go through this one. These ones can be a bit tricky, and there is going to be another method we can use to answer these later on. But for now, what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to break it up into something that is going to give you an even number. So in that case, what I would break this down into is 24 pi on 2 plus 3 pi on 2, which is going to give you sine of 12 pi, which is even, plus 3 pi on 2, which is equal to sine on 3 pi on 2, and I know that is going to be equal to negative 1. And that's going to be my answer there. Okay, so hopefully you feel all right with these, plussing 2 pi, and yeah, hopefully all that made sense. I'll see you in the next video.